Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Saturday Show. I'm so glad you all could join me this evening. I hope everybody had a great day. Just kind of notifying people that I'm live. So just give me a second here and we'll get started. Um, so, before we get started, we got a couple of bills to pay here. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribing, somehow I got down to 428. I was at 429 yesterday and somehow somebody left. So um need a person to fill that in. So that means we are 72 away from 500. Help me to get to that 500. Subscribing is literally free, doesn't cost you anything at any time. Please, please, please hit that subscribe button. Um, Make sure you hit it, smash it, obliterate it, destroy it. Also, support me on Patreon. Patreon support starts at $2 per month. That's 50 cents a week, less than a dime a day. Um, that helps me to get better equipment, a desk, actual microphone, um, better lighting, etc., etc., etc. Um, Also, you can support my GoFundMe campaign. Um, that is a personal campaign of mine. Still trying to raise $2,500. I got 500 so far, so that leaves me 2,000 to go. I'd appreciate all contributions, large or small. Again, that's for personal expenses that have come up that are far beyond my financial reach. I would appreciate any of your support. Contribute to the First Baptist Church North Drama Academy. We are putting on both a fall and spring um, academies, and we're trying to raise $10,000. So just contribute to that. We'd appreciate your support. Again, I'm asking people to support me on Rumble. Rumble is the easiest thing to do. All you gotta do is follow. I need 5 followers to podcast on Rumble, and eventually that $2 per month for Patreon is gonna allow me to um podcast on both Rumble and YouTube and StreamYard at the same time. So I just need one more follower so I can do that. So just please go over and follow. I appreciate it. And join us for the State of the Black Male Voters. That is August the I couldn't fit it all into that little title. It's August the 15th, which is 14 days from now. 14 days from now at 6 o'clock p.m. So you won't get a Saturday show. Um, this is a very important discussion. It's something I've been wanting to do for many, many years since I started this channel. Um, just join us for that and put it on your calendars. Um, 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 and just like I said, make sure you uh, do that. And I'm just sending somebody a quick message here before we get started. Okay, so you see the topic for today. We are going to talk. Oh, there he is right now. Hello, Fizz. So we are talking about the best and worst of television sitcoms. Now, yes, I'm going to tell you where sitcoms, not sitcoms, but spinoffs come from. So most of these are comedies. I'm telling you now, most of these are comedies. So what happens is a show blows up really big. It's really funny. Ha 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 ha. Let's all do this. And so somebody decides to take one of the major minor characters of the show and spin them off into their own series. Sometimes it works, and then there's other times it does not. And I'm going to talk about the best. Oh, and then there are times when the spinoff is better than the original show. I'm going to talk about all of that. So let's start off with the Married with Children spinoff. This is terrible. They actually had two spinoffs. So, Married with Children now. Bundy, shoe salesman, yada yada yada. So they had two spinoffs. And one of them was called, I think one of them was called Top of the Heap. Now, okay, so wait a minute, backtrack this. So there were two spinoffs from Married with Children. Both of them had Joey from Friends on. So he was on both spinoffs, right? But they were two completely different shows. But Joey and the guy who played the father were somehow on both shows, but they kind of changed up the name. Um, but anyway, one was called Top of the Heap. Um, and this was Charlie Verducci, and his son Vinny Verducci, uh, were trying to marry into wealth. And then there was Vinny, okay, and that came on in 91. And then in 92, there was Vinny and Bobby. Now, it was supposed to be like a sequel because, like I said, they kept the same two actors, but they changed their names, if that's making any sense. So these weren't quite the same shows, but they were because, again, the actors playing them, like those are exactly the same actors. But anyway, one came on in 91, one came on in 92. They both lasted about 7 episodes. And since I now know that YouTube doesn't like me showing clips, I can't show a clip. But trust me when I say these two were terrible. Terrible. It was horrible. I don't even know if horrible literally describes it. It was like, it was like watching, like, when you hear chalk and it screeches on a blackboard? That's what Top of the Heap was about. And even with appearances by Christina Applegate, I think her name is, well, Kelly and Al, the shows still weren't that good. Um, yeah, just terrible. Then they had some other ones. Um, Radio Free Tremaine, which nobody knew. That was a backdoor pilot centered around Tremaine University. That's where Bud went. And Steve Rose as the dean. The students' characters, including roles played by Kerry Russell, was never picked up as a series. And then there was one called um uh Enemies in 1996. Season 10 was a backdoor pilot conceived as a cynical rip off of Friends about four argumentative young adults living together. It fell. Okay, so they had two backdoor. Well, anyway, so you can just imagine like watching these. Um, that's exactly right. I forgot the Vinny character. He dated Peg in high school, and then the son dated Kelly in high school. So yeah, let's make a spinoff of it. This is a good example of when not to uh, capture on the success of a previous show. Just leave Married with Children. Just let that by itself. You don't have to make a spinoff of everything. Next one, next one, next one. Um, the Family Ties spinoff. Now you're thinking Family Ties had a spinoff? Oh yes, Family Ties had a spinoff. And this was called The Art of Being Nick. Now I know nobody has ever seen this show except for me, unfortunately. So if you watch Family Ties, Nick was Mallory's boyfriend. Yeah, her name was Mallory. And so she had this boyfriend named Nick, and he was an artist. So for some reason, a character that didn't make but more than a couple of guest appearances, they just decided, just give it its own spin-off show. Yeah, just um yeah, just give him his own show. So the concept of this show was he moves to New York's East Village to live with his sister Marlene and his nephew Lewis. It aired a single pilot episode. Gee, I don't know why uh it didn't get picked up. I mean, um it just was so good. But guess what? Family Ties had two spin-offs. Another one called Day by Day. Like why why do good shows have terrible spin-offs? Oh my goodness. So Day by Day was in 1988. And it was centered on Brian Harper, who retroactively was established as Stephen Keating's college roommate. So again, take a character that hadn't appeared but one episode and just give them a whole sitcom. Um, and then it existed in the same television universe with cross-reference reference. Ah, while it existed in the same television universe with crossover references, no core members of the Keaton family starred in the show. Julia Louise Dreyfus also appeared in the series as a neighbor named Eileen. Why? Just why? And then I thought there was one with Skippy. I thought there was one with Skippy, Alex's friend. Um, I thought he got a spinoff too. Um, oh, that was Day by Day. Okay. So Day by Day was with Skippy. The Art of Being Nick was with the okay, so those are two separate shows. Okay. Um, why do good shows have terrible spinoffs? I did why? Why would you take Family Ties, one of the stronger shows of the 80s, and say, you know what? Let's just take two characters that nobody cares about and give them their own spinoff. It makes perfect sense. I wonder who Joey is related to because they never gave up on him or the exact character. He was the same in every role, including on Friends, if you think about it. Another spinoff. Um, no, I'm saving this one for later. I'm saving mine. I can't even believe that they made this a spinoff. So the next spinoff, and I know nobody's ever seen this but me, but this show somehow stayed on um there uh uh wait a minute, hold on a second. Um I thought this show had a spinoff. Hold on a second. I was pretty sure of this, but I might be wrong. No, they didn't. Well, I'm gonna just okay. Well, we're gonna skip that because I thought Gomer Pyle had a spin-off. But I know the Andy Griffith show did have this terrible show called Mayberry RFD. Oh, this piece of crap. What the heck? It, let me say this about the Andy Griffith show. The black and white episodes were my favorite. It was like after Don Knotts left and they went to color episodes, that's when I was like, nah, I ain't feeling this. But leave it up to somebody to say, you know what? Let's create a spinoff with Aunt B, the other sheriff, Ken Berry from Mama's Family. Yeah, let's just let's just uh let's just do that. Like this show, the setup, maybe RFD was rule free delivery. It was produced as a spinoff of the Andy Griffith Show. Um, Andy Griffith had decided, you know what, I had enough. Okay, so yeah, let's get Canberry from Mama's Family. Francis Xavier said, let's focus less on Andy and more on, for some reason, Aunt B. Why? Why am I watching this show? You're called the Andy Griffith Show. Okay, so Andy Griffith's leaving, so obviously you can't go on with the show. Wait a minute. You liked Gomer Pyle but didn't like Andy Griffith? Are you serious? Andy Griffith, the black and white episodes were fantastic. Just good, wholesome family fun. Just good family fun. And good for the whole family could watch it. That was great television. But Mayberry RT, it was like it just wasn't funny. I mean, they shot all the episodes in color. And remember, this is when color television shows were first coming out. So the technology was terrible. Terrible, 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 terrible. It was like yuck. I don't even know what they were doing. It was like, um, I don't I just didn't even understand it. It was just like, what are you talking about? Um, let me see. I'm gonna get to this one. Um, there's a whole um okay, so the next one, I don't know. When I think about terrible spin-offs from, I think, you know, wait a minute. I just lost the show. I just lost the show. Sitcoms. I forgot the show. Um, oh my goodness. So I want to talk about Family Matters. So he was a single father trying to do the best he could to take care of his auntie and his son. Sure, he dated a lot of women, but hey, Mayberry's a small town. There ain't a lot of pickings going on there. Wholesome show. Wasn't nobody shacking up. You never saw, I mean, sure, always had, substance abuse issues, but, they did the best they could with it. I want to talk about Family Matters. So, Family Matters is a spin off, and I'm putting this in the it was good until it got bad category. So Family Matters was a spinoff of Perfect Strangers. So Perfect Strangers was a show with Larry and his cousin Balky, who came from Metapolis, whatever country, the other fake foreign country. So there was this person that rode the elevators, and her name was Harriet. So Harriet was given her own show called Family Matters. So Harriet was married to Carl, and she had, remember this, she had three children: Judy, Laura, Eddie. Remember that. Then her sister Rachel, then Mother Winslow, and then of course the first season was kind of because they focused on the family, but then this is where it started getting bad. It's when Urkel came in. Oh my gosh, it was like every episode after, like, I would say season three just started focusing in on Urkel, and it irked my nerves. I'm like, every episode. And keep in mind this, Judy disappeared. She went upstairs and she never did come down again. Don't know what happened to her, never explained what happened to her. She just went upstairs, never came down. Just never, ever did she come down. They just kind of wrote her off and said, okay, bye. It was like, you just gonna drop this character like this? Um, no. Um, I just I yeah, like I said, it started off good. Um, but then like once they started concentrating on the Urkel years, I'm like, come on, y'all got to do better than this. Um, I'm not gonna name all the CSI, LA Law, da 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 shows, no, because no, I'm just not. Um, I'm trying to think about, oh, didn't like the show, but Urkel saved the show. It never would have reached 3C. Yeah, but okay, it would have never reached it without him. But did they have to do every single episode? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shut up. Oh my gosh, every episode. And then they did the whole Stefan thing. You remember Stefan, right? He got this alternate personality that was suave and debonair, whereas Urkel was more nerdy and more studious. It was like, come on, take this show off. Just no, 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 no. So here's the next show. Um, Now this show actually had four spin-offs. And most people don't know them. Well, if you watch television in like the early 80s, you probably know these. So there's this little great show called The Mary Tyler Moore Show. And the Mary Tyler Moore Show had not one, not two, but three spin-offs. So the first spin-off they had, actually they had four, because they had this one called Phyllis. And Phyllis, to me, it wasn't a terrible show. But I could kind of see why it didn't last that long, because it wasn't um we got a fire engine going down there. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. So, like I said, there was this show called um Phyllis. And Phyllis, it only ran for one season. No, I'm sorry. It ran for three seasons. Let me take this back. It ran from, let me backtrack this. It ran for two seasons from September 8th, 1975 to March 17th, 1977. Um, Phyllis was this highfalutin, might as well name her Karen. She was entitled, she was privileged, she let everybody know she was privileged. Uh, um, the show, it was like, okay, the show first had her learning that her husband, who she thought was rich, was actually penniless. Then they switched it because ratings began to dip a little bit, so they reworked it um for the second season. Um, and it just didn't gel right. Um, and it just didn't. So, and like I said, they just had like it's funny as I think Cloris Leachman was, she couldn't carry a whole show by herself, if that's making sense, because she was the vehicle. However, there was um Rhoda. Oh, now I love me some Rhoda. So Rhoda Morgenstern was with Valerie Harper, and she was Mary's best friend. And she moved back from Minneapolis back to New York City, and she wanted to be, was she a costumer? Was she a costumer? What was Rhoda's job? Um, Rhoda will begin work there where she soon meets. She married Joe. The series lasted 3 years. Um, da 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 da. Uh, um, blah blah blah. But I thought, okay, um, so Rhoda moves in with her parents, da da da. But I thought that Rhoda was like a costume designer or something. I forget what the show's title was, but Rhoda was really good. But the one spinoff from the Mary Tyler Moore show that confused me was the Lou Grant show. Now, this one, keep in mind, the Mary Tyler Moore show was a comedy. Phyllis was a comedy. Rhoda was a comedy. Lou Grant, that ran for 5 years, was not a comedy. It was literally um, not a comedy at all. It was totally out of the realm. So they, um, um, wait a minute. He won three. I'm trying to figure out. Well, okay, so he was yeah, it was a drama. So Lou Grant is a fictional character played by Ed Asner, blah 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 blah. So to switch from comedy to a drama and the way they did it, it was so like, okay. Um, he literally played the same role and they completely changed the whole premise. Um, um, and it stayed on for 5 years. Um, and he won uh two Grammys, two Emmys for playing the role of Lou Grant. So that was a successful one, right? And I've mixed these in with successful and non-successful. Um, why did Alf have a spinoff? Yes, Alf. Alien life form had a spinoff. Now they changed the premise. I'll tell you, they did change the premise. Um, but why did they have a spinoff? Alf was one of these shows. Um, I can't even say what it was. It spun off into a cartoon. There was a prequel. Um, but then there was a talk show. Not to get deep into it, but Alf was already a terrible show by itself. Um, it just didn't understand why Alf had two spin-offs. I just did not understand um why this had um a spin-off. I just didn't. But I do understand um why Different Strokes had a spin-off. You all know it. Um Now the world don't move to the beat of just one drum. What might be right for you may right be right for some. A man is born, he's a man of beats. Then along come two. They got nothing but the G's. They got different strokes, did they? Different strokes to move the world. Okay, so different strokes. I really shouldn't have to tell you about this. Spun off the facts of life. So Edna Garrett, the best and first maid on a different world, different strokes, gets a job as a house mother and dietitian at Eastland School, an all boarding school. Now keep in mind this is an all boarding school. Um, they had like 20 girls at the school. They had Molly Ringwald, Kim Fields, the one that played Natalie, and a bunch of other girls. It was like 20 of them. First season, it was okay, but you could tell they had like different strokes appearing in every episode. Like, okay, you're gonna really need this. So they kind of shaved it down to four girls. There was Blair, Natalie, Tootie, and then they added Joe. So it now just centered on the four. So the facts of life actually ran um from 1979 to 1988. Um, and that's a long time. But um, I didn't know, well, I knew this, but I bet you didn't know that The Facts of Life had a spinoff. Yeah, I bet you didn't know Facts of Life had a spinoff. You sure didn't. Did you not know? But they did. So Facts of Life had what they call a back door, the way that most sitcoms start. You take a character that's a major minor character, you spin them off into their uh own show. So in this spin-off, um Lisa Blair uh is now the head mistress, and she's gonna run it alongside her co-ed cast featuring stars like Juliette Lewis, Seth Green, and Milam Bialik. Didn't last, but I bet you didn't know that The Facts of Life had a spinoff. You just didn't know that. The Alf comics and cartoons were my favorite as a kid. Just couldn't get with it. I'm like, shut up. You don't eat cats. And they just put cats around. Get out of town with Alf. Okay, so I got to talk about A Different World. A Different World was a show that I enjoy because everybody knows I don't like the Cosby Show. I never thought it was funny. I didn't get it. It was just like this is black. Father knows best. It literally is Father knows best, but everybody's black. But they had spinoff. And the spinoff was a different world, and a different world was awesome. This is one of the few times I liked the spinoff better than I did the original series. So, a different world followed Denise. Um, um, might be your connection because I can hear myself fine on my phone. Um, they followed Denise Huxtable going to fictitious Hillman School. And of course, she got booted in real life because she was pregnant, not married, or was she married to Lenny Kravitz? They wrote her out. They wrote out the white person that was in there, and they focused more on Dwayne Whitley. And boom, bam, you had a show that lasted maybe a season or two too long, but still enjoyed a different world. Again, one of the few sitcoms that I actually liked better than the original. I also want to get to because I'm trying to watch my time here. So I'm trying to think of what that one spinoff was of Who's the Boss. Who's the Boss had a spinoff called Living Dolls. Okay, so this show only lasted 2 months from September the 26th to December the 30th. So somehow Samantha gets enrolled into a teen modeling agency. Yeah, because every parent lets their girls or their young daughters enroll in a teen modeling agent in New York City. Um, Holly Berry was also in this show, and it's just about as bad as you can imagine. One episode, again, just why? Why couldn't you just leave Who's the Boss alone? It was right there, and you just ruin it by getting this silly, silly um spinoff. Also, next one, Benson. Now you're saying Benson, starring Robert B. Guillaume, Stacy Gold, because Tracy Gold was on Growing Pains, but Stacy Gold was on Benson. And Robert Guillaume started out as a butler, or was he a housekeeper? He was a housekeeper or butler, I can't remember. But anyways, that was a spinoff of Soap. Soap was a comedic look at soap operas. Ridiculous plots. They just went off the rails their last season. So they got Benson on Soap, funny standout character, and gave him his own show. So he took the butler role over to Benson, where he played again. He was the housekeeper or butler, whichever one he was. Um, and that lasted, and he went from butler slash housekeeper to lieutenant governor somehow, and it was like, dude, this is really. I mean, it was so unbelievable. But if I think, oh, this is based off of Soap, it kind of makes complete sense. That's another one. Um, I'm getting to the Happy Days ones here in just one because I just got a special place for them. Special place. So another spinoff that I enjoyed way more than its predecessor was Frasier. I loved Frasier. No black people anywhere. Like you're in Seattle, you can't find a black person anywhere. Still love the show. I thought it was well written. I thought it was that dry humor that I kind of enjoyed, and it was just to me way better than Cheers. Cheers was good. Another show with hardly any black people in it, but Frasier was just better than Cheers. It was better in the terms of its pacing. It was better. It's like they didn't have like a huge ensemble cast. It was just Frasier. his brother Niles that somehow appeared out of nowhere, his father, um, Roz, and Niles' wife. It was like five main cast characters, and that's pretty much what they kept it to, and it really worked well. Um, I didn't see none in Frasier though, and I love this show. I loved this show. I loved this show. This is again, this is an example of where the spinoff better than the original. Just better. Better written, better jokes, just better, better, better. A spinoff that wasn't, and this show had two spinoffs. There were two spinoffs of the Golden Girls. I should not have to tell you this. Uh there was a backdoor episode of the Golden Girls. So the girls had a friend who was played by Rita Moreno. I forget what their names is, but she was married to her husband who was a doctor or a surgeon or something like the blah 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 blah. Um, and the daughter was going off to college and the mother felt neglected, and the father was just like, oh, I gotta help this person, but never helped his wife. That didn't last long. That episode was called Empty Nest. However, the show later spun off an actual sitcom called Empty Nest, and that ran from 88 to 95 about a widowed pediatrician, Dr. Harry Weston, who Blanche was always trying to get with. Or actually, they all were trying to get with. Um, and that was then. Then Empty Nest spun off Nurses, which I just did not like this show at all. So this is a spinoff of a spinoff of a spinoff. Just didn't care for it at all. Just didn't care for it at all. At all. But the most popular one was the Golden Palace. Um, the Golden Palace was with all the Golden Girls except for B. Arthur. And what happened was in the last episode of the Golden Girls, Dorothy gets married to, oh, what's his name? Philip, Michael, whatever his name is. And the three remaining decide, you know what? We're gonna buy this hotel. Um, it was really apparent that B. Arthur was missing. And they added Don Cheadle and they added that other guy who I can't think of. Oh, Chief Moran. It was in it, and you could tell it was terrible because it moved from NBC to so NBC said, "No, we not about this life. We just not about this life." So we pass on it. So CBS picks it up, and it only lasted less than a season. Um, it just didn't. They had the Confederacy episode. They had an episode about Blanche's son that was a stand-up comic, and you could just really, really tell um, that B. Arthur was missing. I'm like, without her, this was just terrible. But I'll tell you what wasn't terrible. They had some good ones and they had some best ones. So the All in the Family um spinoffs. So the first one, loved it. Favorite show of the 80s, The Jeffersons. So if you know anything about All in the Family, Archie and Edith Bunker had a next door neighbor or next door neighbors, and their names were the Jeffersons. George and um, George and Louise, better known as Wheezy. So George, the way they tell it in the show, like in All the Family, is different than what they tell on the TV series, The Jeffersons. Well, anyway, so George either he gets a lot of money and decides I'm opening up a dry cleaners, and it starts to be successful. So they move from living in the Bronx or Queens or wherever it was they lived to New York City to get their deluxe apartment in the sky. I loved the Jeffersons, loved the Jeffersons. Did not mean that I loved the spinoff Get Ready or Checking In with Just Florence. We was not ready to see Marla Gibbs in her own series. It was too early for 227, so we wasn't really ready like that. And that the Jeffersons was a successful one. But even though people like Maud, I'm not a Maud fan. I'm just not a Maud fan. I just couldn't. I just couldn't with Maud. It was just like um she was Edith's cousin who came to stay with her when um Edith was sick. And he the show just wasn't good. Um um the main thing people remember about Maud was she was 47, pregnant, and had decided to terminate her pregnancy, becoming the first female TV character to decide to terminate a pregnancy. That was a big deal. And the only um 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 trying to think, her husband Bob or Jack or whatever his name was, um wait a minute, let me go back here. So Maud was on from for 6 years. How did this show stay on for 6 years? She was an extreme liberal, as Archie Bunker was an extreme conservative. She had a maid. That maid was named Florida Evans. In Maud, her husband, played by John Amos, was named Henry Evans. Henry was a common name that um, Norman Lear tended to use a lot. So they got spun off into Good Times. Ain't we lucky we got a dun, 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 good times. Somehow they moved from Chicago to New York and just dropped the change Henry to James. Didn't give him anything past a high school graduation. I think he was a high school graduate. No, he was a high school dropout that went to the army but never got any benefits from being in the army. Didn't understand that because aren't all army vets entitled to benefits? But anyway, so Good Times was a spinoff of a spinoff. Another spinoff of All in the Family, Gloria, which was terrible. So Gloria was the spinoff to All in the Family, because Gloria was Archie Bunker's daughter. She was married to Mike Stivic off camera because, oh, Mr. Reiner, Rob Reiner, didn't want to be in this show at all, and I don't blame him. Rest in peace, Rob Reiner. Um, he had an affair, he cheated, so she divorced him and moved back to New York. Now, she didn't move back with Archie, she moved back with the Penguin. Yeah, Burgess Meredith was on the show. Joey. I believe that. No, the show was called Gloria. Yeah, Gloria. How long did this show? This show stayed on from September the 26th, 1982 to April the 10th, 1983. It just Sally Struthers cannot um just cannot um 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 and was 704 Hauser Street. 704 Hauser Street takes place in like the modern times. And 704 Hauser Street is the address to where Archie Bunker lives at. So obviously the house, Archie doesn't own it anymore because I think they had said he passed on in the show. And um the show was about the Cumberbatch family. The Cumberbatch family is a pro-black family. Um, Black veterans did not start receiving equal benefits until the 70s and 80s. That's when Good Times was on, the 70s and the 80s. Good Times was on in like 74. So, yeah, but racism is real. So, the Cumberbatch batches. Um, this show was just terrible. It lasted from April the 11th to May 9th, 1994. Again, John Amos was in it, and his son, Thurgood Marshall Cumberbatch, was like married or dating a white woman, which Ernie did not approve of. Uh, it's just terrible. I don't even understand. And I'm not even gonna get to Archie Bunker's place because that show was just like I know that Jean Stapleton, who played Edith Bunker, she left the show, so it couldn't be the same. But oh my gosh, that show seemed to move so slow. Uh, I'm trying to figure out where these marks on my hands came from. Um, I cannot. Let me move lastly to the Happy Days group. Because I wanted to save this one for special. So I don't know if everybody realizes this, but Happy Days itself is a spinoff. Yes, Happy Days is a spinoff of a sketch that was done on Love American Style. So they had a sketch, and it was called Happy Family or Happy Happy Family or something like that. And so they spun it off into Happy Days. Happy Days ran from 1974 to 1984. You know the um the history, Henry Winkler, um, Ron Howard, blah blah blah. So they spun off quite a few shows. I'm gonna try to remember these in order. First, they spun off Laverne and Shirley. Now, Laverne and Shirley was absolutely great. They were two females working in a brewery, trying to make it day by day until for some reason they moved to California. So overall, I would give it a C plus. Only if they hadn't moved to California and Cindy Williams hadn't left because she was pregnant in real life, I think it would have been a B minus. But okay, then came um Mork and Mindy. Now you're saying, huh? Yes, Mork and Mindy was a spinoff of Happy Days. So Mork and Mindy was Robin Williams. So Mork was from the future. And keep in mind, Happy Days took place in the mid 50s to like the late 50s. So Mork was from like the 70s and he was coming back to the 50s, right? So keep that in mind. So when Mork and Mindy they spun him off on his own show, that show took place in modern times, the 70s. So there couldn't be any crossovers because there just couldn't be. Mork and Mindy took place in modern times. Happy Days, even though Mork traveled back to the 70s, took place in the late mid 50s to late 50s. Then that show, I just could not stand it. I could not stand Mork and Mindy, especially when Pam Dauber became pregnant and birthed that egg. I couldn't, I wouldn't. I just did not like Mork and Mindy at all. I'm probably one of the few people that doesn't like Mork and Mindy. I just couldn't. I'm sorry, but this is just really getting on my nerves. These little scars, um, really burn me. So then that's a D minus in my only because it has Robin Williams in it. I'm not giving it a flat out F. So I would give that a D minus. I didn't grade the other ones, but who cares? Then the next spin-off was Joni Loves Chachi. Oh boy. So Joni Loves Chachi, of course, was with Scott Baio and Erin Moran. Rest in peace, Erin Moran. They graduated high school and from Milwaukee, they decide we're going to pursue our musical career. Keep in mind, Scott Baio could not sing, cannot sing, is an awful singer. Anne Moran, I mean, she's not Mariah, Whitney, none of them, but her voice was okay. I mean, it was okay. Wasn't anything special, but it wasn't terrible. So they moved from Milwaukee to that bustling hustle of music, Chicago, Illinois. I don't even know who sat down and thought, you know what? This will do it. Let's give Chachi, um, his own show. I mean, what? You moved from Milwaukee to Chicago? Like, who does that? Um, like I said, it was um oh my gosh. I just don't understand. Um, the singing was terrible. The acting was terrible. They even tried to have Al in there, and it was just like, why? Why did we care? This show didn't even last. This show somehow lasted from March 1982 to May 1983. It only had 17 episodes. How did this series last 2 years? Um, I just don't understand. And then they had a cartoon. Yes, that's right. Fonz and the Happy Days game. I haven't even gotten to the Dukes of Hazzard spinoff. Yes, there was Enos, the Happy Days, the Dukes of Hazzard spinoff. Haven't gotten to Knox Landing, the Dallas spinoff. Didn't get to the Incredible Hulk spinoff. Didn't get to any of that. But because I had to be on another podcast, I do want to make mention the Sunday show is back tomorrow. We've got a big program. I'm going to be talking about primary elections in St. Louis, Michigan. Why dude is in a relationship with his second cousin in Maine. If that's true, I hope it's not. Um, I'm going to be talking about the cuts to Medicare Part D. I'm going to be talking. It's going to be a big program. So join me tomorrow at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Sunday show. It makes its triumphant return after a 2 week hiatus for me to do interviews. So it will be just me solo. So remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, like, share, comment, subscribe, like, share, comment, subscribe, and finally, like, share, comment, subscribe. Have a great day. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.